G'day guys and welcome. My name's Michael and I am the Deadaussiegamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Today we're going to do a very sensitive topic, and that is of course the topic of dealing with troublesome players. Now, there are many words that people might throw around for these players, which I'm not going to use, but nonetheless, I think the idea of what a troublesome player is a very subjective idea. Some people may be troublesome for some GMs or some tables, and others might not. Any kind of player is really going to be well suited to whatever table can accept their particular style of gameplay. This being said, I'm going to go over a few of the rather troubling types of players that, if inserted into a generic game, may cause trouble. As such, these are a few tactics of both identifying these players and being able to deal with them and hopefully encourage them to, better stand out as role players. So first and foremost, what is a troublesome role player to me? Well, as I am a public GM, I have a very unique experience in that I've played with a ton of different players. Some young, some old, some experienced, some very new. And for me, I've bottled it down into one specific type of troublesome player. And that is a player who plays at the expense of the others at the table. If you are there and you are ruining either the fun of the game or the narrative, or you are making fun of people's roleplay, that for me is a troublesome player and someone who, well, is not really in the spirit of the game. This being said, among those, I've always found that these four people in particular tend to lean in the severely troublesome category, and hopefully you guys will learn a little bit about them and how to deal with them if they show up at your games. So the first one I want to talk about is probably the most common, and that is the distracted player. Now, the distracted player is someone who tends to bring technology with them or some other means of entertainment and finds themselves disengaged from the narrative. They can often be heard using the phrase, "Oh, I'm sorry, could you say that again?" They can often be known for having their turn come up and then ask what's going on. And worse still is when they are basically standing up, walking away from the table, and then do not return for the better part of the game, only to realize that they have missed out on a great bit of the narrative and completely and utterly disengage from the rest of the campaign. These are the distracted players. Now, for me, I just identify with these guys because there are so many times I look at my game and I question myself. I say, why is this person distracted? Is it my game? Am I doing something wrong? Am I not entertaining? Am I not loud enough? All of these things are destructive to a GM, and you should never think this way. Believe it or not, the answer is so much more simple than that. We live in a world of technology, one that didn't exist in nearly the capacity it does now a couple of decades ago. When ethics and respect was being brought about game tables and what true etiquette meant, technology wasn't a huge deal, but it is today, and a lot of people don't acknowledge that. Little things like having character sheets on digital formats, being able to resource your information online and be able to cast your spells by looking at your phone and saying, well, this is what my abilities do. Here is a dice roller that'll tell me exactly what 50 dice actually mean, rather than actually rolling a chunk of dice on the table. All of these things and more are a modern convenience. But technology can rear a very ugly head very quickly, with many people even getting to a point where they're chatting with other friends, or even perhaps playing, a phone app or a digital app while the game is going on. Now, okay, I'm going to go on an angry rant for a second. For me, if you're playing a game at a person's table, that is like the height of disrespect. It is the Elizabethan equivalent of slapping someone in the face with a glove filled with bricks that is covered in hot tar and razor blades. It makes me so angry when I either experience or see a player at a table using their phone to play a game. do not do it. There is no mid ground here. Simply do not play a video game while you are at a D&D table. Just get up and leave. That's sorry. I get very angry at this. Technology, though it is a friend, can be a definite foe for your table. But the thing is that when a person requires this form of constant engagement, often the problem isn't the fact that they can't pay attention, but the fact that the excitement level has dwindled. And this could simply be a problem with table management. When you as a GM are running through your scene, it is important to know where your spotlight is currently being held. It is a very common mistake for GMs to simply want the focus to constantly be on the most exciting bit of the narrative. Let me give you an example. A group of 2 adventurers walk down a corridor. One adventurer goes to the left and is continuing through the labyrinthian maze. Another player has gone to the right and has entered the realm of the Minotaur. Now, it is very tempting for the Minotaur to suddenly become a big encounter and to become a fight and this whole other thing, while the other player is simply just checking doors and seeing if traps are there or whatever. Now, the scene could play out something along the lines of, yes, so as Derek moves to the left, he finds himself in a long corridor filled with doors. You try the one on your left. It's a storeroom. All right, now over here, Alex has entered a large dungeon with a huge circular chamber, and in the center, a humanoid figure, a muscular male figure with the head of a bull encased in steel. It snorts with fire burning in its eyes and hot smoke sindering from its nostrils. It charges with its huge axe, and it swings and it misses, and then you get to attack and you swing and it misses, and then this happens, and then that happens, and then this happens. And all of a sudden, the person who is on his other adventure is now on their phone. Because, well, yeah, it's taken so long. It's been more than 10 minutes. I mean, what do you expect? They're not even looking forward to their turn. Because it's a dungeon crawl. Instead, what you want to do is you want to make sure that things leave off on cliffhangers more than just empty space. For example, Alex enters the room. As he opens the door, the large room opens to a dais, which standing on its high rise is this muscular figure with a bull-like head covered in steel. It snorts vicious gouts of ash and points in your direction. Meanwhile, over here, as Derek has checked the next door, he finds that the door is slightly locked. And I say slightly locked because as he jimmies it, he finds that it becomes unstuck and pushes against what he thinks is maybe a hard barricade. He gives it another shove, and then another, and then the door opens, and inside he sees back to Alex. Okay, now Alex, this, and so on and so forth. This constant bombing between, those moments of excitement keep everyone engaged and keep everyone really invested in that moment. It could leave them enough time to be able to consider their actions, making it more dramatic for when it finally becomes their turn. Alternatively, you don't really want to have more than, say, a 10, maximum 15-minute break for any one individual at the table. Any longer than that, and you'll find that they've become disengaged and easily become distracted. Alright, so that's the distracted character. Don't play games when you're at a table. Sorry. I'm leaving it behind. We're going to the next thing. Now, when I was talking about troublesome players, I did not exclude myself. I am wholeheartedly a troublesome player for some people, and I acknowledge this. And I fall into this category, which is the expert. Now, the expert sounds like a really nice thing. It's not. There are people out there who believe themselves to be of a higher caliber or higher standard of role players. I find that a lot of people who start conversations with, I've been role playing for blah, 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 or I'm a professional game master. People like that tend to fall into this category. They're not just rules lawyers, though. They are also the people who have taken professional acting classes and who understand exactly what it's like to be a thespian at a table. This is not really a game. This is a chance for me to show you all of the techniques that I have learned to use my voice and project when I am playing. All of these things and more. can be very troublesome to deal with, especially if you're not accustomed to that style of gameplay. Honestly, the biggest thing that I find with these particular players is that they try to set a standard that not everyone can meet. A player who is giving a lot of rules lawyering to a game simply is upholding it to the standard that, well, I know the rules, therefore you should know the rules. And because I know the rules, the GM should enforce these rules. And because, everyone now is of my level, that means we are going to have a better game because all the rules are adhered to this level. Or role players who sit there and go, actually, your dwarven accent sounds a bit Irish. Maybe what you want to try and do is you want to try and say, "Ach, laddie," or try and have a bit more of a growl to your voice. Like, these guys, their heart is in the right place. I know, because my heart is in the right place. And all they really want to do is they want to enjoy a quality of game with everyone else. Now, while this is appreciated, and to you, again, if you are an expert troublesome player, my heart goes out to you, but your help is not wanted, nor is it needed. At the base level, you as an expert player need to start trusting your GM. Get to that point where if they make a mistake, let them make a mistake. Let them see what it's like and what happens when that mistake occurs. Let your players do the same thing. If you are an expert, sort of sitting there constantly leaning over at your archer and saying, "Don't take that shot, you're going to provoke attacks of opportunity," then, of course, the second that you're not there, they're going to do it and they're going to make the mistake. If you really want to help people, let them make the mistakes. Don't rub it in their faces afterwards. Just let them learn the lesson themselves at their own pace. Even experts started somewhere. And starting with an expert leaning over your shoulders and giving you advice isn't always the best way to go about it. So I encourage you as a GM to encourage your troublesome experts to use their powers for good. Don't focus on trying to improve the other players, but to use their knowledge, their skills, their abilities to simply show what it is to be a good player. If you are trying to give advice to the archer, rather than telling the archer, "No, don't do that," don't do it yourself. Okay, I go into melee and I throw a dagger. As I throw the dagger, I am going to prepare for the attacks of opportunity that people are going to get. And I'm going to fight defensively. Now, you haven't told that person, "Hey, you should fight defensively while you're in melee while using ranged attacks." But at the same time, by doing it, they can observe you and go, "Oh, okay, so that's what he does all the time. I should do that all the time." And that's kind of how a expert can use their powers for the greater good. All right, by the way, you remember how I said that I kind of, fell into this category? Yeah, so yeah, I'm a lot more troublesome than I gave myself credit for, because the next category is the egotist. And yeah, I'm in this category too. You know what? Look, just because I make these videos doesn't mean I don't acknowledge that I am half these things, okay? So the egotist is someone like me who believes themselves to be the greatest gifts to God Green Earth, or in some way, shape, or form are simply playing or role-playing themselves. Now, this is, look, the reason this can be troublesome is because there is a line of disbelief where a GM and a player have an understanding that this is the standard, this is when I'm talking to the player, this is when I'm talking to the character. If I, as a GM, tell my character, like as an NPC, just go up to that character and say, "Shut your mouth, you insignificant worm. If I wanted to listen to a butt, I would fart." Now, I could say that to a character, and it'd be kind of funny, and you'd have an understanding that it's not me telling that to my player. However, those who tend to be egotists, those who tend to play themselves in a role-playing game, can often blur that line and take those things personally when they're brought up. So it's not the character being told to shut the hell up, it's them being told to shut the hell up. And you know what? No one likes that. No one likes people getting in their grill or getting in their faces. And there are things that you'd far less tolerate in the real world than you would in a fantasy game. So that's one element of it. The second element that kind of can be very destructive is drama. And I know that this excuse gets thrown out a lot. But that's what my character would do. when people say that's what my character would do, I want people to acknowledge, I would like my players that do this to acknowledge that it is not an excuse to do, to create a drama. My character would kill the hostage. That's fantastic. That's not an excuse for you to suddenly not talk to people or not engage in the world around you. You as a player telling that to the other players isn't part of the game. You need to do that in game. It happens a lot, and I think it is the source of a lot of dramas that tend to occur with egotist type characters. So what can we do when we are trying to deal with these particular egotistical, troublesome players? I highly recommend encouraging these players to start referring to their character in third person. I don't think it's fair for everyone to be expected to role play their characters, right? While I acknowledge that there are very talented people and very creative people out there who get into the game, who love making characters, whose characters have a rich, intricate, and lovely backstory, there are equally people out there who simply don't have an interest in that, who don't want to create a character. They just want to learn about what's happening in the adventure and go on a quest. That is fine too. And people have no right to tell them that they cannot have fun that way. But for the ease of everyone involved, having those players simply refer to themselves in the third persons identifies clearly when something is being said to or discussed with a character versus the player themselves. King Eldrin, who has a strong distaste of Arthurian the Grey, turns to him and says, "For your insolence, boy, you shall be thrown in the stocks and pelted with rotten tomatoes." And if that player turns around and says, "Well, stuff you, king," you know that that's kind of the player. If he goes, "Arthurian the Grey stands tall," and flips him the bird. Now, it's still fundamentally the same thing, but now there's that disassociation, and you will avoid that player feeling like you're targeting them, and instead they themselves will start identifying what is happening to their character as just happening to their character. So that's the egotist. That's one of the ones that's quite tricky to do. Because of course it revolves around them changing into an entirely different style of gameplay. So if you can encourage them to do it, highly recommend it. All right, the last one here, and this one is a big one. This is probably the biggest one, and I left it for last because I know that some of the people I'm talking with and helping in my free online coaching are currently talking to me about this, and that is the mood killer. Now, the mood killer is someone who specifically references the real world, does metagame, he wants to tell jokes, to break the tension, interrupts a lot. Now, the mood killer is a pain. And I'm going to say this outrightly. There is nothing more painful to a GM than a mood killer. You could be getting right into a story or right into a thing and just simply have someone interrupt mid-sentence with a joke or a shaggy meme or say, "Hey, check out this video." Slightly different to the distracted, the mood killer can sometimes just do it ad lib. It's not that they're distracted, it's that they're engaging in just a very negative way. So let me give you an example. I had a guy who, a rather young kid, and you imagine that a lot of young people tend to, lean into the mood killing mode. Just sort of spontaneously burst out with, "I summon a fart demon." Okay, yeah, fantastic. Your character's a barbarian. You can't summon fart demons, but sure, we have 10 other people at this table, but let's stop and discuss your fart demon thing. Now, I mean, there are good ways to handle this sort of thing. There are bad ways to handle this thing. Oh, by the way, the kid was like in high school, so it's not like a 10 or a toddler, So for me at the time, I was faced with a choice. I could either acknowledge what they've said and give them some attention, which they clearly wanted, or I could ignore them and try to proceed onwards. I tried to proceed onwards, shortly followed by, "I pee on the fire." What fire? I light a fire and I pee on it. Okay, yep. Ignoring has not worked. Let us engage. Everyone at the table now sees him start a fire. He begins to pee on it. Does anyone do anything? The short answer is no. No one does anything. And the reason they don't want to do anything is because people, the other players, did not want to engage with this. This was not something they wanted to role play. This wasn't something they wanted to try. The mood killer had successfully killed the mood. And honestly, there is just a case of taking things too far. When you want to tell jokes at the game, or if you want to tell, sort of have these outbursts, and you are like me, you're very excited, and you kind of think of something clever on the fly, hold it in reserve, right? Wait until an opportune moment. Learn those timings to be able to say, hey, now's the good time to do this. Or even just, again, in the age of technology, write it in a text. Send it to the Facebook group. Just say, hey, you remember when Thingy said thing? This is funny. Have a bit of a giggle. Those kind of things will, I suppose, ebb a mood killer. But really, I wish I had better advice, to be honest. But a mood killer can really, really cause you a lot of problems. You just need to acknowledge them and tell them outside of the game, listen, you're an interesting person. You are someone who we value as a player. You do not need to impress us. You do not need to entertain us. Quite the contrary, I, as the game master, am here to entertain you. The immersion that we're trying to go into is something we want you to be a part of. And I know you might be struggling with that right now, but I'm hoping that one day I can bring you into the fold and really get you into the campaign and into the story so that you can enjoy it like everyone else does. I'm sorry if I'm not getting there just yet, but if you're willing to try, I'm willing to help you get there. You'll often find that is a very good thing to say to the mood killers, because sometimes, yeah, they're doing it because they feel awkward, or there's anxiety involved where they aren't sure of how to roleplay. They're in a different scenario and they're just trying to do what's familiar, and telling jokes and kidding about and, all that sort of stuff is what they're familiar with. So you need to make sure that they understand that it's a comfortable setting, one that they're welcome to be silly and express themselves. Because if role-playing games are anything, it is about accepting the fact that you can sit around a table with a bunch of your friends playing silly buggers in a world of imagination with a bunch of weird-shaped dice. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that whole thing made a whole lot of sense. I am going to be away for the next week if you're watching this live. This is obviously February-ish 2019. So if not, don't worry about this. But I'll be away for the next week. So normally I will tell you guys to jump onto Discord. I am very active. The link will be in the description below. You can ask your own questions about role-playing or playing. And I'll usually be able to give advice, except for this coming week. If you guys want to check out some other stuff we do, head over to Facebook. We write articles, we share memes, we do a whole bunch of cool stuff over there. And of course, if you want to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to see more videos like this. Next week, we are going to be looking at identifying and dealing with troublesome GMs and what to do if you're a player on a table where your GM is, well, not that fun. So stay tuned for that as well. And as always, guys, if you want to support Deadaussiegamer, we have a Patreon, which will also be in the link below. Even the smallest donations go so far. And to my Patreons currently, thank you so much. A very big shout out to all of you who are in the Mythic Patreon tier, who are going to be joining me for a new series of games that will be on Twitch, hopefully somewhere between the end of February and the beginning of March. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, guys, as always, game hard or die trying.